Thank you for being here with us this evening. As you're filtering in, if you don't mind renaming yourself to include your pronouns so that we know how to address you when we're all talking and chatting with one another, that would be helpful. I'm going to go ahead and tell you all a little bit about Open Mouth and about our access efforts while folks are filtering in. And then we will hear some poems. So without further ado, and if you want to, you can follow along with me. There's an access copy that Gwen will post a link to in the chat. And you also should be able to see Wes, our interpreter, should be spotlighted for you. So if you're using ASL interpretation, you can follow along with Wes. And there's also a transcript that should be enabled. You can find that by clicking on CC Live Transcript at the bottom of your screen, and it'll show subtitles. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So there may be some interesting misinterpretations on the transcript. Hi, Derek. Nice to see you. So without further ado, without more rambling from me, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Open Mouth Literary Center. My name is Molly Best-Rector. I'm the director of Open Mouth. And just a quick image description, I am a white woman with medium length brown hair and blue eyes, and wearing a blue sweater. Behind me, you can see kind of a window with some blinds there, and then there's a orange painting that's not very clear, but I will show it to you close up someday if you want. So we're Open Mouth Literary Center. We're a nonprofit literary organization based in Fayetteville, Arkansas. We host a monthly poetry reading and workshop with our visiting writers, as well as an annual retreat and festival, a residency for local writers, and extended classes. Our goal is to bring local poets and poetry lovers in contact with nationally touring poets to create greater community through writing. At each of our readings, we have an opening round of 10 or so community readers who read one poem each in rapid succession, either their own or a poem by someone else that they love. Slots for this evening are full. Actually, they're full with poets from our local residency. So we're really excited to have like a really kind of a return to poets from our community for this reading. But normally we will have people from all over the place in our online readings, and we would love to have you if you are a poet and would like to sign up to be an opening reader. Gwen will put a link to a form in the chat so that you will get an email. You can also get future information about our events on our website, where you can sign up for our newsletter, and we'll link to that too. We also post about our events on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and we pay all of our featured readers. So we're taking steps to continue that effort, and then we're also taking steps to increase accessibility permanently by continuing to post reading and workshop content online at our Patreon account, and by providing access copies and ASL interpretation at workshops and readings. You can read more about what we're doing to increase the accessibility of the literary landscape on our website. And you can also support this work by signing up to give regularly through our Patreon, by donating at the link on our website, and by, of course, continuing to come to our events. We're really grateful to have you here. All of your donations for this evening are going towards supporting a new program we have with an organization in Little Rock called Decarcerate, which is an anti-prison organization, and it's called the Inside Out Fellowship. So we'll be providing mentorship and financial support, and hopefully eventually publication for a poet who's currently incarcerated. If you want to learn more about that, Gwen's going to post a link to our GoFundMe for that in the chat as well. And I also am going to tell you a little bit about our accessibility efforts. So we've been working to make our programs more accessible, both for this online format and when we're able to have in-person readings and workshops again. We're taking the step of highlighting access features on Zoom, providing an ASL interpreter for our readings and workshops, as well as collecting and offering visual aid materials. We've also completed a course with an accessibility consultant to better understand and apply the principles of accessible design. And we just got a grant actually to have some more sessions with that consultant. We're really excited about that. We're also really excited about the accessibility that the online events provide. Because of this format, we're able to reach people who might not otherwise be able to make our events because of everything from distance to immune issues to physical access challenges. So even when we return to an in-person format, we'll follow guidelines put forth by immunocompromised and high-risk people to ensure events are as safe as possible. And we now plan to make sure all of our future in-person readings and workshops are in a hybrid format, simultaneously cast online. Workshops will be made available on our Patreon for a small fee, and readings will be on Patreon for 1 month, and thereafter will be available on YouTube. So here's what you can do to help us ensure that this space remains accessible. I think everybody's already doing this, but mute your microphone when you're not speaking to help cut down on distractions and background noise. And be aware if you're taking up a lot of space and try to make room for others. So you can use the raise hand feature or post in the chat if you want to say something. And then be aware that people may have different levels of comfort speaking and interacting in the space, and allow everyone to participate on their own terms. If you feel comfortable, share your pronouns by editing your name to include them. If you don't know how to do that, you can do that by hovering over your own picture or going to your name in the participants list and then clicking. There should be either more or 3 dots that appear, and you can go down to rename in that drop-down list. Please give a content warning if what you're about to share might cause someone else discomfort. And then if you feel comfortable, please provide a visual description of yourself when you're on camera. And remember that this is your space to use respectfully as you need. So you're free to turn off your camera, use the chat function, or make any requests that you need. You can reach out to me or Gwen or CD, any of the Open Mouth team. And then of course, look for links to access copies in the chat. We also will ask you to give us some feedback. Even if you didn't use any of these services, we'd like to know what it was like for you being at an event that has this kind of these kinds of accessibility services offered. We use that information to help us make sure that we are building better programs. So that's my spiel. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to hand it over to our friend CD, who's going to introduce our opening readings for this evening.
Hello, my name is CD. Image description, I'm a white person with clear rimmed glasses, brown blonde hair. Behind me is a pothos plant and a monstera plant. And so we're going to have some opening readings for Susan Reads. Our opening readers tonight are all folks who have been part of the Open Mouth residency at Mount Sequoia, based here in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So they're going to read some poems for us, and I'm really, really excited. The first opening reading that we have is by Lauren Tess. Lauren, do you want to go ahead and get started?
Thank you so much, and thank you, Molly and Gwen, too, and Open Mouth for the amazing residency. So I have 2 poems, and they were both written last March during my time at Mount Sequoia for the Open Mouth residency. Oh, and my image description, sorry about that. I'm a white woman with longish brown hair and wearing a pink shirt, and I'm in a wooden chair with white wall and a lamp and the edge of a framed picture in the background. All right. My first poem is called From This Empty Place. When we pretend the winds have turned to breezes, we go out jacketed to walk past just burst buds and impatient frog calls. I step into tufts of creekside rushes and the croaking stops. Spring can be an end, a branching off. There's a flinging apart of the universal now, and I'm reminded of how separate I am. Amphibians shun me, flora unconforms, everything's starting to trumpet individuality. And here I am stranded, some door slammed shut, and as the world turns away to commune with its own, I'm left perched over the creek, watching it flow past, alone. In this empty pause, from this empty place, an owl takes wing on a wind overhead. And my second poem is The Forms of Movement. An impression of catkins, olive gold, dusts the frailest branches fortified by xylem. From the concealed heart to tropism, a turning. I'm unsure of north from here. No shadows, no past. But the chickadees don't need to pause, gathering unseen sustenance through taxis, arrangement, not thoughtless but innate. And the third form of movement, that is kinesis, non-directional, untranslatable. I will descend the mountain encircled with souse and into the chaotic streets of exhaust and pollen dust, where the light beams bent and bowed, and there I know my concealed heart will sing me on, my own son. All right, thank you all so much.
Thank you so much for those poems. Yeah, the diction you have, yeah, having kinesis, having xylem in the poem is always wonderful to see, and it just sounds so lovely. Thank you. Our next readings are going to be from Carolyn Ezel.
Hi. Am I doing this right? Can you see me and hear me? Okay. I'm Caroline. My image description is I'm a blonde white woman. Sorry, my dog is also scratching a bottle, so we're gonna get her out of here. I'm a blonde white woman, yellow background of a wall, some of my boyfriend's art, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table. I forgot if I was supposed to say anything else, but here I'll read my poems. My first poem is called Marion Bad. The grounds hum with the digging of gardeners and the parasol dance of esteemed guests. A holiday resin casts the courtyard in minute eternity. Same hands twist brass knobs to private rooms where same wives wait, smelling of a transient other. The honey of the scene boils in our throats as he opens up to say he knows me. Who am I to you? I say. He says a name that catches in my stocking, but is not certainly my own. He exhales, and it is like my lover. His footprints shrouded, baked into snow that was not snow moments before, stacked on one another, no right or left to compare. This is not my lover's foot is a claim stronger than this is the foot of my lover. We see things that are not ours most clearly. If there were two, would I choose the finer foot or the gentler gait? We walk, and as we walk further, we know each other less in decelerated acquaintance, surrendered to the body simple. In a static embrace by the final topiary, he confesses to know each cave of my face, my balustrade nose and princess finger. He names the cocks of my wrists and the thudding of my navel bell. We are orbs nuzzling indeterminately, catching scents, forever bubbles. Smell is the final initiative. Smelling keeps us safe. Smell a rat, that's a person. Smell a fish when there is no fish. Smell desire, smell illness, smell age. Men with misplaced spectacles fumble at the breasts of croaking maidens frocked in bashful lace. There is a valor in their drunkenness. Conflict swirls among the guests, ejecting jolly caution that it may end soon or not at all. The gardeners remain gardening, and my lover and I walk still. And my second poem is called A Wedding. And okay. They blind me, antibiotic, with a gown so white it's ruined. Leftover funeral wreaths flank the altar and stink like a baby's neck. Delicate wax from the chapel candles preserve my mother's ring finger. Mine has been dipped in dirt and sucked on. I am wed with a tuberose headache and trusted to bury remaining sweetness in a doily. Edelweiss scream, and I am on my knees for whoever. Thanks.
I love the contrast between those poems so much, like just the magic of the first one and then sort of how that scene gets rendered in that just so few lines. That's so wonderful. Thank you. Our next reader is going to be Emily Useche.
I'll give a quick image description. I am the light-skinned brown woman, and I am sitting on the floor. Behind me, there is a door and a tower fan and some necklaces hanging on the wall and a window to my right. And I am wearing glasses and a side bead earrings. My first poem is called A Snowy Afternoon. I wrote these 2 poems during my time at the open mouth residency in January. Okay, A Snowy Afternoon. 4:14 p.m. The bath starts running. The temperature on the Echo Show reads 18 degrees with a wind chill of 5. And outside, the birds search for seeds kindly gifted by our elderly neighbors, whose chimney has not stopped puffing steam up into the winter air, surely keeping their hearts and their home warm. 4:20 p.m. The little one splashes in the water, fingers and toes thawing after a brave venture into the snow, memories he won't soon forget. I know as every other day he sighs audibly and recounts his sorrow. I'm sad. Why are you sad, my love? Because there is no snow. But today, my Aquarian child, there is snow. 4:31 p.m. The dogs bark out the living room window with mild annoyance at the squirrel who follows their whereabouts daily, taunting them with freedom. And I imagine it laughing, perhaps a Republican in a past life. 4:38 p.m. My partner argues with our toddler, begging the water bearer not to splash outside the tub. And it is like asking the rain not to fall from the sky. My second poem is called Mixed. This one is really special to me. My own voice, me suena, static of a melodía antigua. I cough and igual sigue, a broken radio, dañado pero sirve. I choke on palabras not meant for mi lengua, and no one me ofrece a cool glass of agua. I stumble over la violencia found in this idioma. Lead me to el arroyo. Let me beber the music of mis ancestros. Start to entender. It isn't algo que I can aprender. It is parte de mí, and the arroyo is my sangre. Thank you.
Thank you so much for both of those. I love the first one, the timestamps. It's just such a wonderful contemplative element to that. And then the music in the second one is just lovely. So thank you. The next reader we have is Claire Hutchinson.
Hello. So image description, white person with pink and black hair and chunky cat ear headphones on, sitting on a beige couch. Yeah, so this first poem that I'm going to be reading is called Locked, and it's an adaptation from a zine that I made in 2019. 1. If you put a decoy heart on your sleeve, they won't notice where it hides behind your teeth. Tell them you keep it in a locket on your cheek, in your eyes. If you put just enough truth in the lie, they can't tell the persona from the personal. Keep your heart in a box tucked under your car's passenger seat. Do you recognize this song? I played it at your funeral, the last long drive. I have a box of old photos that won't burn. My heart is cold. I can't breathe. through the frost that has blackened my lungs. Do you know what I mean? 2. If you put your heart on your sleeve, cover it with paint sealant and surround it with spikes. If it looks too much like a trap, they'll leave it lie. If it looks too much like a trap, they'll do everything they can to get by each carefully constructed defense and pluck it from the fabric where you pinned it. Do you know what I mean? I never learn anything. If imagery of a house represents the self, why do I write so much about homesickness, of not knowing where home is? Do you still look in the mirror? Can you meet your own eyes? Why wasn't I enough on my own? Have you been sleeping well? Stop looking. 3. If you turn up the radio, you won't hear the rattle. You can mistake the beat for a bass line. You can hide. That's why you locked it away in the first place, right? Maybe you're pretending to leave it behind. Nothing to see here, folks. No boxes, just car keys. Hearts on the sleeve. Hey, don't look too closely. And then the second poem is one that I wrote during my residency in October, and it's called The Haunting. There's something haunting my skin, shivers and sweat spilling over goose flesh and waking me up before the sunrise, the alarms. It's been waiting for my old exorcism to wear off, sending spiders and old thoughts until I am nothing but ruin, cobwebs, and a coffin, lid slammed shut against the song, a melody I thought I'd long forgotten, misremembered by blood, shrouded by fog. But bones are less forgetful. My body marches on. Was it mine back before, back in the beginning? I can't recall if there's something haunting my skin or if I am the one sending spiders and old thoughts, misremembering the blood and the fog. Thank you.
I love that line, lid slammed against the song, a melody I thought I'd long forgotten. It's just the sounds in both of these are so tight, so punctuated. I love it. And next reader is going to be Gabby Trevino.
Hi, can everyone hear me okay? All good? Great. Hi, my name is Gabby Trevino, and my image description is pretty simple. I am a lighter skinned brown woman with black hair, a cool septum piercing that refuses to heal, and some gold hoops because they are my signature. And I've got a beige sweatshirt on and a beige background, so very lackluster, but here we are. Great. So this first poem that I'm about to read is all about the grief that kind of just smacks you in your face when you start into your 20s. I've been here 4 years. So, so yeah, here it's called Hoy el quebranto y mañana el sol. My dad's been gray since 30. A few of his have joined me and sit at the top of my head. They sometimes form a halo. Dad tells me he's sorry, but they've become my favorite thing. The neuroses set in when I was 10. I tried to box everything up to compensate for the chaos in my mind, the forgetfulness, the dreaming, the million sentences I started that I haphazardly mashed with other starts of sentences because I could never see an end in sight. There's never been an end in sight. My mind doesn't grasp those as easily as it grasps the birth of an idea. I'm cruel to myself when I go, and then something brings me to a screeching halt. Perhaps a breath caught in a stranger's throat that they let out, and I am reminded that my dad is 64 and my mom is 57, and my grandma just turned 77 a few weeks ago. And every time my dad loses a hair, it joins my halo of gray. All of these things become fact in that moment, as if by not thinking about it, they cease to exist. And the thing about grief is she'll catch up with you no matter how much you turn away from her. And grief was always the thing that choked me. I didn't really have rules for her because she was too big to control. I didn't have a box big enough to contain her. She terrifies me, especially because she comes to me at night, and the night hours are the most honest. Perhaps you can hide emotion within others. You can hide hurt and anger, mask pain and fleeting moments of joy, but you cannot hide grief. She demands to be seen, and she'll pour it out of your mouth with or without permission. Grief stains every part of your being. She hangs heavy in the air and weighs on your shoulders so that for a time you aren't able to stand up straight. She engulfs every part of you. It's easy to not be hungry when grief settles in the pit of your stomach. It's easy to not breathe profoundly when grief compresses your chest. But grief is true, and she demands your surrender. She demands your embrace. So yeah, that was the first one. This next one is one of my favorites that I've written. It's gone through a lot of changes, and I worked on it when I was doing the residency last April, and it's called Relampaguito. I traversed this wound, bleeding and open, before conception, when my mother came to this place. She carried the wound in her womb, and it imprinted on my wide back, heavy shoulders. Y ahí se quedó. La herida leaves me with blood-stained clothes. I've tried to wash it, tried to heal it, nurture it, but it persists. It demands to be seen. It demands to form a mountain range cultivated from 2 colonized lands, and it demands I navigate the loose rocks, the steep climbs, the unsure gravel, the cuts, the bruises, the falls, the pains. It demands I feel it all. Pero luego me transformé en un relampaguito, tímida al principio, se me quitó el miedo y caí tan fuerte, mi trueno tan escandaloso, que se partieron las montañas. The mountains split open, and nestled in the middle, among the loose rock, se encuentran las historias de mis antepasados. Sin fronteras, sin muros, solo el río, la tierra, el sol. Enamorada me quedé. Thank you so much.
Wow, it's were both wonderful. The line and the thing about grief is she'll catch up with you no matter how much you turn away from her. It's just, yeah, it's just wonderful. Both of these are so wise, as Molly said. Our next reader is going to be Jordan Smith.
Hi. Oh, I'm down here with the big screens. Oh goodness. Hi, my name is Jordan. Image description, white girl, faded, previously dyed red hair. Clearly sitting on her bed despite best efforts to disguise the fact. Just off screen, roommate, supporting. Roommate pictured. My poems are both from my residency. Also, thank you to the previous poets. That was all wonderful. I was like holding my tongue over here, but it was lovely. And to the interpreter, you're doing great, Wes. Okay, let me pull up my poetry. The first one is called Snowfall. The previous poem about snow really made me smile. The first I remember was in the 3rd grade, just beginning to flurry down as I walked into the store on the square to get my ears pierced. When I came out, a woman, it hadn't stopped, and I stared in wonder at the sky. Second in my memory, 16 maybe, I was working, a child. Then I had to catch my shift at the diner. It froze the town for days. School shut down and sent us home with packets of work. The tree outside my window glistened under heavy ice, beautiful and bending, suggesting eventual shattering, like me, cracks forming. 19 at college, sliding on the ice outside the dining hall with my roommate, I told her one day we will look back on this moment, sparkling present tense nostalgia. That was the day my mom said I needed to stop eating. It was frozen outside. I was in my car watching frost melt. I felt the chill enter inside me as the snow fell that night, spiraling down. So was I. By the next snow, I was unrecognizable. 20, standing on top of a building at the university, looking down at gray street, gray sky, gray people trudging past, umbrella shielding me from fat flakes, and my snow clothes weighed more than me. I am trudging to therapy soon, but for now, I watch flakes fall whisperingly silent over miserable world and take a painful breath before I walk inside. 21, COVID raging, quarantine Valentine's Day. I live with my girlfriend and the temperatures drop lower than they ever have. I trip and traipse to the gas station to buy wine. I drink with my ex-professor. The water is frozen, but we're drinking rum anyway. Laughing, spinning in the street outside, I fall and gash my hand open, and she keeps laughing, doesn't notice. Snow stained red, like that memory. I fell asleep with her 2 bedrooms over from my girlfriend who pretended she didn't mind, but I deserved what I had coming. And as the frost crept around the windows, I knew my crystalline heart was cracking again, memories fading before they were made, powder footsteps leading right to self-destruction, like pretty mutilation, like frozen electricity, like words floating in air, so cold it hurts. I'm left alone with silence and snowflakes, wondering what numb ache the next snowfall will bring. That was the first one. We pull up the second one. This one's literally untitled, so when I sent it to Open Mouth, it's titled Sitting in a Room Poem. I wrote this, I think it was on my first day of my residency. I was just sitting in the space provided, which is such a lovely old room, and just kind of like wrote as I thought. So it's very stream of consciousness. I am sitting in a room and I am wondering what I did to deserve being here. I am sitting in a room writing I statements into a notebook that is falling apart from overuse and is not pretty, but stained, garish, with highlighters from my notes about Nazis and colonialism and all sorts of white academic things. I am sitting in a room taking up space that could have been someone else's. I am sitting in a room with an old armchair like my Aunt Melba's, who is not my aunt, who is an old lady tougher than nails, who wears a fake wedding ring and has a man's coat by her door in case of intruders, who invited the whole town over for Thanksgiving and continued even as people slowly stopped coming, who owns half of Drew County and lives in a drafty, creaky, tiny home. And the last time I was home, I asked my dad how she was doing, and he, surprised, told me she had been dead for years. When did she die? Why did no one tell me? Did she die alone like so many Thanksgivings? This room has creaky floors like hers. She was a mean old lady. She's a dying breed. I loved her. I am sitting in a room that reminds me of extinction. I am sitting in a room writing stream of consciousness poetry, if you can even call it that. I am sitting in a room still stuck on my hometown. These windows look just like the old houses on the square, the kind you have to prop open with a stick. Don't they always come with these wood floors? Is the house trying to tell me something when she creaks under my weight? Is she asking for me to remember her? Does she know that I will? Does she know I couldn't forget it if I tried? I am sitting in a room wishing, being a little too much of an academic for real poetry, true poetry, good poetry, singing poetry, time capsule poetry. I'm sitting in a room being a little too much of a redneck for academia, Southern accent dripping like honey on my homework, hometown ghost tied to me as I'm fighting for a seat in the classroom. We all need a seat. Can you scoot over? I'm sitting in a room being too much, a little part of too many worlds, a little paper thin. My roommate says I'm spread so far I'm translucent. I sit at this desk and think of my grandpa who taught college classes without a degree until they realized. I think we might have had more in common than we thought. It's too bad he died when I was 10. I think he would like this room. He was a carpenter. He would have loved the dusty wood smell. I am sitting in a room that has gotten dark around me. I am standing in the room. I am leaving. Goodbye. Thank you.
Wow. The moves that both of these poems make, either like on the page or just through the way they move through these subjects is really breathtaking. Honey on my homework. Something about that just feels really right. I really love that. Our next reader is going to be Sophia Jones.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for such an amazing community and what a wonderful space. Mount Sequoia came to me in a time in my life that was desperately needed. So thank you for providing such a beautiful thing in the universe when it's kind of been dark and gray all the time. So I wrote these poems last year, and since Valentine's is coming up tomorrow, I thought they would be pretty apropos. My image description is a A-line haircut with two blue colors on the side and a rainbow glasses and a psychedelic purple room with decorations in the background. My first poem, Midnight Snack. Are you hungry or just bored? I hear my mother's voice, pre-recorded in my memory banks. My eyes filt across the counter. Coffee? No, I don't want to deal with the liquid shits. Tea? No, I don't want to get up and pee all night. Half-eaten banana? Oh God, no. Fruit flies into the trash, which needs to be emptied, of course. God damn it. Half-eaten bag of bread, languishing in crumpled packaging, gleefully reminding me that I lack the fucks to cook. Fuck you too, judgmental loaf. How many pizza rolls have I eaten? Oh God, close the bag. Don't count. Second bag this week. Ooh, stop counting. What about another frozen waffle? Thoughts of diabetes and cavities result in yellow box tossed back into. Also, no to the Oreos, because 30-somethings and metabolisms are distant high school acquaintances. Prowling and perusing the kitchen, I hear again, are you hungry or just bored? Why the goddamn dichotomy, Mom? Can't I be hungry and bored? Chuckling lightly, thinking of retorts to mothers decades later. You can take the kid out of childhood, but can't take the traumatized kid out of the arrested development of my adult experience. My eyes alight with delight, the perfect little treat peeks out from the bowl, an orange, a perfectly proportioned, beautifully colored, and alluringly simple orange. Well, I guess technically a clementine, but clementines don't sound nearly as evocative as an orange. One hand reaches, soft finger pads slide, a casual flick of the wrist, and the radiant orb lands in hand. I look at it, I watch it, I gaze at it, enraptured. A medium gazing into my crystal ball, this delightful little fruit fills me with such profound delight. Slowly, carefully, reverently, I hold my treasure towards my nose and sniff. The skin feels cool, the smell is citrusy and clean. The pressure of holding it against my face, like the touch of a lover's cool hand. I quickly nip my teeth deep into the rind, rending soft and sweet flesh, open to the outside world. A grimace as the acrid bitterness of the rind coats my tongue, a quick spit to get the lingering slick from my mouth. Why not use my nails, you ask? Ha 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 ha. Anxiety has gnawed my nails to stubs since the day I got these pearly white teeth. Wait, did I turn the computer off? Distracted, I set down my ball of heavenly mana to run to check. Of course it was on. Oh look, must pet that cat. Oh look, there's that lost book. Oh look, is that a clean or dirty pair of underwear? They're on that chair. Sniff nest. Oofta, laundry day is due. Toss it into the depression pile, deal with it when mania hits. Now back to the divine orange, perfect and refreshing in every way. I reverently rob the fleshy orb of the last of its outer dignity. The bulbous shape beckons, each slice promising sustenance and delight. With care, I select my first bite. Pop the morsel into my mouth. Perfection never tasted so good. I stand, stark naked of course, in my kitchen at midnight, making love to an orange named Clementine. All right. Whew. I don't know how you all read these so calmly. I'm sitting here going, ugh. All right. Second poem. Ode to my 500 love. It's great. We're doing great. I believe in all of us. Ode to my 500 loves. Oh, what a joy to have and to hold, to love and to cherish, to meet and say farewell. I speak of my 500 lovers, past, present, future, and imagined. These little lights of mine, oh, how do they shine so fine, so bright, so perfect, so free. Free love to all, ELE. Everybody loves everybody. Pick your partner and do-si-do. How could I possibly pick a single blossom and call it my lifelong favorite flower when others bloom equally sweet? The most amazing blooms lose fragrance, color, and shape, even when most perfectly preserved in the pages of your favorite book, forgotten until opened back up again. Unlike a flower, the blooms of my love live on and on, perfectly preserved in the chambers of my heart, in the rolling folds of my gray matter, moments of ecstasy forever arrested, caught and kept anew in the echoes of sweet reminiscing. To each of my 500 loves, I love you still, I loved you then, and I cannot wait to love you again. I need no Helen of Troy. Stop that Romeo, oh Romeo. Say no more dead Capulets. Love is not a finite thing. It is infinitely incandescent. Love long, love hard, love often and be not forgotten. Quaff from the head of bubbly love. Science calls it NRE, hooked on that new relationship energy. Slip your sweet words and caressing hands deep into my veins until my blood and body throb with thoughts and memories of you and you and you and you. I love you, I miss you, and I can't wait to meet you. I will live my life with 500 lovers, near, far, corporeal, ephemeral, and each will be loved and kind. For a moment, for a lifetime. Let's get punch drunk on love, love, love. Let the sweet drug of limerence explode across our serotonin-deprived minds. Come here, good looking. What's cooking? Let's get our love fix and flow. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, the expansiveness of both of these poems is really wonderful, just how they go out and yeah, the way they move, the energy in all of these. Yeah, someone wrote in the chat, the amount of lines that make you go, ha, is, yeah, really delightful to hear all of these. So thank you. And yeah, that is our last opening reader. So we are going to move into Susan's reading. So thank you all for reading. These are all fantastic and wonderful, and it's really exciting to see the connections between all of y'all's poems and then also with poems that Susan's going to read. So really exciting. Yeah, so Susan Nguyen is our featured poet for today. Susan Nguyen's debut poetry collection, Dear Diaspora, won the 2020 Perry Schooner Book Prize in Poetry and was published by the University of Nebraska Press in September 2021. Nguyen's poetry is often interested in the body, how geography, history, and trauma leave markers, both visible and invisible. Her poems have been nominated for Best of the Net and the Pushcart Prize, and have appeared or are forthcoming in the Rumpus, Tin House, Diagram, and elsewhere. Her hobbies beyond reading and writing include photography, scene making, hiking, and otherwise being outdoors. We're very excited to have her. Susan Nguyen.
Thank you so much for the intro. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you everyone who's read already. Honestly, like I'd be fine just like continuing to listen to you all read and not reading, but I guess I have to. So image description, I am an Asian woman, black hair, black t-shirt, and my background is green fireflies in East Coast forest, so you can not see the mess behind me. I'm going to read some poems from my collection, Dear Diaspora, that came out last fall. And I guess all I will say to preface the collection. It's for me was a chance to interrogate what being a member of specifically the Vietnamese diaspora meant to me. It's still something that, of course, I'm navigating and figuring out. And I'm super happy and lucky that poetry was one of the access points that I had for that. And the collection follows a protagonist named Susie with an I, which, spoiler alert, is definitely a fictionalized version of myself in many ways. So the first poem I'm going to read comes early in the collection. It is called The First Language. 1. Behind the church, we ran through labyrinths of poplar and hickory, dirt paths cutting through ravines and the backs of suburban homes, their brick patios and striped furniture. In the green light of summer, we loved getting lost, how we could step into woods and exit in a cul-de-sac 8 blocks away. Loved it best when tadpoles formed a halo around our toes. 2. Before he disappeared, my father taught me how to catch tadpoles in my hand. The trick wasn't just to stay still, but to stop breathing. He caught dozens like this, knees bent and pant legs folded, his face inches above the creek. He taught me that our first language was named after tadpoles, the way they moved through water, a knife dissecting the stratosphere, a voice cutting quiet. 3. My third favorite memory of him is walking hand in hand on 2-lane roads, identifying Virginia trees. In one pocket, a zodiac sign lighter, a button from mother's favorite blouse. In the other, acorns for burying. I can still identify the red oaks. 4. Today, the tadpoles flow through my fingers like an egg yolk, and my impulse is to cradle one in my mouth. The tadpole swims circles, and my tongue follows, mapping its movement before spitting. Okay, my next poem is called Wish List. And I don't know who's in the room, but I am definitely a millennial and a child of the 90s, early 2000s. So maybe you'll get these references, maybe you won't, depending where you're from or what era, I guess, I don't know. All right, I'm just gonna stop talking and read the poem. Wish List. Susie plucks the occasional white hair from her mother's head and all the stiff hairs from her powdered armpit. Every dozen is worth a dime. This is her only allowance. She used to pluck her father's white hairs too, but when they spread to sideburns and eyebrows, her mother bought black hair dye from CVS. When Susie first asked for an allowance, her mother doesn't know the meaning of the word. Who pays for your food, gives you a roof to sleep under? The next day, she tells all her nail lady friends who whoop for days and who raised her like that. Susie adds allowance to her wish list for a bourgeois life alongside a waterbed, family vacations to Disney World, a minivan with built-in video player, Lisa Frank school supplies, fondue sets, the wooden tree swing. Really proud of myself because I think I said bourgeois correctly, and that is a very, very tough word for me to not stumble over. What Susie believes. Eating too much ketchup might turn you pink. Some library books have pages made from recycled toilet paper. Both hands are needed on the steering wheel. The yellow tape measure she finds from her mother's tailoring days is a Burmese python she drapes across her shoulders, a la Britney Spears. The more she thinks about her mother or father dying, the more likely it will happen. God can hear her thinking of sex during Sunday Mass, but not when she prays for parent safety at home on the way to and from work. The century egg her mother gifts her cannot spoil. The sparrows that fly into H Mart, perched on rafters, cannot leave. Worse than dying is disappearing. Sorry, I'm slow at going down my Google Doc. Okay. This next poem is called Cicada Summer. I'm from Virginia, East Coast. So we have those cicadas, right, that come up I think it's every 7 years or something like that. And growing up, it was a very big deal. I have this memory that at this point I've talked about so much that it might be an invented memory. I don't know anymore. But I remember in elementary school, like all the kids, including me, freaking out about the cicadas and like a lot of kids daring each other to eat the cicadas and some doing that. I don't know if this is real anymore, right? Because in my mind, I wrote it with that memory in mind, but now I don't remember because I've talked about it so many times. But in my mind, this is what happened. Cicada summer. The cicadas come from the ground and enter the world in currents, streaming down tree trunks, over branches, across sidewalks and roads, the males pulsing their abdomens, singing for sex. In the field behind the school, Susie and her classmates stand still as dozens climb over their bodies, careful not to crush the winged insects beneath their feet, fearful of littering the ground with broken glass. Susie collects every wing she can find. Each one becomes a small body of water she carries in her pocket, a broken window pane she holds to each eye. She counts dozens more on her way home and imagines how they would taste. Hands in her pockets, touching the wings to each fingertip, she wonders, would they still sing on the way to death, and would it sound any different? Today, she walks through uneven fields of green and spits into tall grass, the roots of trees, listens as the clicking of cicadas fills her body with song. The green lacerates her ankles, and she imagines her blood mixed with dirt will nourish, will add to the muscle tremor of the earth. The next poem I'm going to read is called Letter to the Diaspora. And I have a few poems with that title scattered throughout my collection. And the beginning of those poems start with Dear Diaspora, and that's where the title of my collection comes from. Letter to the Diaspora. Dear Diaspora, I believe in the American dream. Strike through. Last night, I had the American dream. In the dream, I had an indoor pool. In the dream, I walked my dead dog with a diamond leash. I ate a greasy burger with my perfect hands. I had the most beautiful sex. My skin was smooth, alabaster as the moon. In the morning, everything had changed. There was no pool, only twine for drying clothes. The dead remained dead. My perfect hands held nothing. Nothing was better. Okay. Just checking the time. I think I have time for a few more. If I say my body is grieving, is it American or Vietnamese? My mother said, our country no longer exists. My father said, in our language, the same word means green and blue, sun. My father said, to distinguish between the two, you say sun la, green leaf, and sunzajai, blue sky. My mother's miscarriage after me said, what color was I? My mother said, in our language, the same word means land and water, Nuuk. My mother said, all of language is a metaphor. Say what you mean. My father said, if I say I cannot live without Nuuk, do I mean country? My mother said, Vietnam's body curves like the letter S, serpentine, fragile. My father said, the Mekong Delta translates to River of Nine Dragons because 9 tributaries sprawl towards the sea. My mother's miscarriage after me said, was my salted mouth American or Vietnamese? My mother said, don't translate me. My grandmother said, don't speak lest your tongue rushes like a river. In the night, history absconds with us. We learn to open in darkness. My mother said, when you tell it, do I float on land and water? My father said, am I the green leaf, the blue sky? Oh, I thought that was the end of the poem. My American mouth cannot separate itself from my body. Okay. So in the middle of my collection, I have a longer poem called "The Boat People." And if you happen to be looking in the Google Doc, I've just pulled some excerpts from that super long poem, just so I could skip around a little bit. So excerpts from "The Boat People." I think maybe this will be the last thing I read today. Thank you for listening. She Googles FOB after someone calls her fresh off the boat. She's never been on a boat. What she finds: blank deaths from blank to blank, blank memorials in blank countries. On open water, they traveled on small fishing junks, origami boats, arms and legs folded, one over the other, trawlers, smuggling thousands of bodies, searching for international water, living on empty for weeks and months, looking for coastline that did not push back. Vietnamese Boat People Memorial, Asian Garden of Peaceful Eternity, Westminster Memorial Park. The man and old woman, the young mother and child, frozen in bronze, turned blue-green, for figures so soaked they've become the waterlogged wrinkles of their clothing. For figures on the raft, floating in a fountain shaped like the body of a boat, their bodies submerging above water. The young woman's outstretched hand reaching back in time. Around the fountain lay 54 stones, each inscribed with names, a small portion of the dead. The cost of leaving: 24-karat gold bars, bribery, cover of night. On the boat, people drank urine, licked their palms of sweat. The tide brought them in, human cargo, a small island camp, swarming bodies under palm fronds and scrap metal, waiting to be screened, giving birth to new life, waiting, raising fighting roosters, waiting, waiting 5 years. Can you die of waiting, waiting, denied asylum? Interview number 1. The former boat person stated that as many as 20 ships passed by without stopping and coming to their aid, ignoring their cries for help. When they finally saw shore, the refugees sunk the boat with their bodies, pounding their hands and feet so that they could not be towed away. And I think the people smugglers speak will be the last section I read from this. The people smugglers speak. They come to us with black market gold, whole life savings, homes sold. They, the soon-to-be defectors. They will say they're going on holiday for nothing at all. They will disappear in the middle of the night, walk through mud and green jungle, reappear in darkest morning. Some commission their own boats built, traveling petri dish of human waste, fever dream. We know men who have tried to leave many times, only to be turned back. Bad weather, bad feeling. They will not give up. They would squander their life savings a dozen times. Anything for the chance of freedom, the promise of blue ocean. And I think for tonight, that's where I'm going to end. Thank you so much for listening and being in the space. Thank you so much, Open Mouth, for the opportunity. And especially thank you to our readers. I've really loved hearing your work earlier tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's such a treat to get to hear you read and to like see some of those poems come off the page with your voice. I know earlier during the workshop you were saying that it's always like so special to get to hear work read aloud by the poet who wrote it. And I definitely feel that way about your poems and about the poems that our readers read tonight. So yeah, I want to just echo your thanks. Thank you to everyone who participated in this reading this evening. We're really grateful for you. And it's really special to those of us at Open Mouth to get to like hear the work that like to have gotten to be a part of facilitating some of that work being made. So especially like our opening readers, we're just really like honored to have gotten to provide space for you to make some of that beautiful work. And of course, thank you as always to our wonderful interpreter, Wes, who does such an amazing job keeping up with these like abstract concepts and bends in language. I want to encourage everyone, if you have the funds to buy Susan's book, Gwen has put a link to Susan's book in the chat. If touring poets rely on book sales, it's a big part of the gig. So if you can support Susan's work, we would be grateful. We're of course grateful also for your support of our work. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to stop rambling now. I love you all. Have a good night.